Welcome to Rewatch and Rank. On this channel, we rewatch older TV shows, provide a summary and opinion on the episode before ranking each of the episodes against each other. Today's episode is Charmed Season 3, Episode 1, The Honeymoon's Over. The episode in a nutshell is just a brief reminder of what happens within this episode before we go ahead and rank the episode. So the episode starts with Prue studying the Book of Shadows, and then Phoebe walks in and Prue throws her into a couch, and Phoebe comments on how jumpy she is. And of course, this is when the conversation opens up about the fact that Piper has disappeared for an entire month, and they're lucky that they haven't been attacked, and that is why Prue is studying the Book of Shadows, as without Piper, they cannot be the power of three and are therefore vulnerable to any evils that may be trying to kill them. We also learn that the Triad was behind the previous attacks at the end of the last season, and so that's also another concern, as this is a bigger evil than they have faced before, that is obviously planning something, and they want to make sure that they are ready for it, whatever it may be. We then have them getting a phone call from Daryl, who is at a rave undercover and is tracking a murderer who is believed to be working with demons, as he uses a runic symbol on his kills. And this is, of course, when Prue then gets a fax of one of the victims and the runic symbol, and in the Book of Shadows, this is linked to the Guardians, which are a type of demon that protect mortal killers in exchange for taking the innocent soul of their victims. While Daryl is tracking this murderer, the sisters realize about the Guardians, tell him this is this is over your head, don't attack, don't follow. He does anyways because he's a good cop, and he ends up knocked out and is about to be carved into when an unlucky innocent woman happens upon the scene and becomes the actual victim in this case. The sisters are 3 minutes away. They arrive at the rave. They then go through the rave to get to the back alley. And there they find the woman dead and Daryl about to be carved into. Prue, of course, uses her power, throws the killer onto a dumpster, and manages to kill the Guardian by throwing a piece of wood into the rune on the Guardian's forehead. This, of course, is when Cole comes in because he is going to be prosecuting the case against the killer, and they are the only witnesses, aside from Daryl, who was knocked out, so not actually a witness, but a victim in this case. Of course, they have to lie because they can't reveal that they are witches, and so they go to the court. Killer walks free, but Cole keeps kind of hanging around, and then Phoebe gets a premonition that Cole is going to be a victim of the killer, Emilio, and so her and Prue try to find him, and when they arrive at the parking garage, Cole has been knocked unconscious, and Phoebe goes to attack and ends up levitating for the first time, gaining a new power. Prue then is able to once again throw Emilio out of the way and stake. Well, this time it's not a stake. This time it uses the dagger Athame against the Guardian, and that goes into his forehead. It's vanquished once again. After this all occurs, Piper arrives home, and she thinks that she's only been gone a day. Her and Leo are mid-fight, and she goes to the club. Prue follows her after asking Leo to ask the elders about guardians. And then, I'm just trying to recall exactly what happens next. No, I did this slightly out of order. I apologize. So, actually, the attack on Cole happens after this. Crew and Piper are at the club. Phoebe comes in, having had the premonition about Cole. Her and Prue then leave the club. Piper goes home. When Piper gets home, he overhears Leo rehearsing to himself in the mirror what he wants to say to Piper, not realizing that's what he's doing. She opens the bathroom door, asks who he was talking to, and if he was telling himself how much he loves himself. And that is when he asks her to go downstairs. She refuses. He then gets down on one knee in the bathroom and proposes to her, but she rejects him. After Cole is attacked, then all three of them and Leo go to the night court where Piper freezes only the innocents, and to her shock, the only people who freeze are Daryl and Leo, and Cole fakes being frozen. They then, of course, fight everybody off until the judge runs away, calling all of the guardians that were protecting the mortal members of the court to him. And while the sisters run after the judge, Cole then comes out of the fake freeze that he was doing, shimmers, which is a demonic skill, in with the judge, vanquishes the judge, shimmers back, pretends to be frozen. Sisters see the burning judge, but think it's weird, but don't really question it or can't really investigate it at the time. They return to the court. Phoebe hits Cole with one of the batons from the security guards, and then pretends that it was Emilio who hit him, and talks about how, the entire court was like, Emilio went crazy, the court decided to help him, and that Daryl saved the day. They then end up at the club, and Phoebe kind of waxes poetic about how much she likes Cole, and then Leo arrives. Piper then goes over with Leo and accepts his proposal because the near-death experience that she had being outnumbered and fighting so many people at the courthouse made her realize that she doesn't want to die without ever having been married to him, and they then agree to basically be engaged and elope. That is what happens in this episode. All right, so now that we've been reminded about what happened in the episode, it's time to rank this episode. On our two lists, as a reminder, we rank on two lists, a mostly objective ranking list, which is absent emotion but does include bias and judgment, potentially. And then the personal ranking list, which is the emotion-based list and just based on my personal opinion. So we start with our mostly objective rank values, and because this is a premiere episode of the season, a lot happened. So we'll start, of course, with our single episode supporting character introduction, which was Emilio. And that was worth 1 point. We then have our multi-season main character introduction, which is Cole Turner, who is Phoebe's main love interest of the series, though not her endgame. He sticks around for a lot of seasons. He's a main character in several seasons, and then he kind of goes more into like a supporting character role. But as he is main character and multi-season, or as he's multi-season and is main character for some of those seasons, that is what he's being considered as. And so that is worth 4 points. We then have our multi-season main character growth, which is of course, and of course with Cole, we learned that he is a demon right from the start, though the sisters are not aware of that fact yet. We then get our multi-season main character growth, which is that Phoebe gains a new power, which is the power of levitation. I do consider it a little bit odd how, like, Prue got her second power last season in season 2. And you would have expected it to follow kind of age order, where it would have been Prue gets a new power, then Piper, then Phoebe, but they kind of skipped over Piper and went straight to Phoebe, which, to be fair, she's the only one who didn't have an active power, though even with her active power, it is still kind of, not great. But we've been teased about her flying for the last 2 seasons in several different episodes at several different points. It's been noted or foreshadowed that she was going to get to fly. So now she does, and she has gained the power of levitation within this episode. That is worth 4 points. Yay. Um, we then get some world building aspects. We learn that obviously time moves at a different pace up there where Leo is, because Piper thought a day had passed, but in fact an entire month had passed. This one does confuse me a little bit though, because like obviously Leo goes up there quite often to gain information for the sisters and then bring it back. If time was in fact moving so much slower up there that an entire day was equivalent to 1 month, I feel like they would always like it doesn't make sense how you could go up, get the information, and come back down so quickly all the time, and yet somehow when Piper visited, they were gone a month. Like it just, I'm gonna trust what they say. Maybe it's because Piper was a witch and not a white lighter that the time moved differently for her than it would ordinarily. But it did confuse me a little bit. But that is what they stated, so that is what I'm going with. And then the other aspect of world building is again confusing to me because I'm not sure that this actually tracks, but Piper, when she goes into the courtroom, focuses on only freezing the innocents, not freezing the others. So in theory, her power should only work on the innocents. But then we learn after the fact that by making the choice to only freeze the innocents, that then gave immunity to her powers to the people she chose not to freeze that first time, so she isn't able to freeze them after the fact, which is just confusing to me because she wasn't using her freezing power on them. She was only using them on the innocents. I don't see why that would give them immunity. It doesn't make sense. It's not like she used it on them and then they fought it and gained immunity, or she used it on them and they were too high level that it wouldn't work on them, which is how we've seen it be in the past. She willingly chose not to freeze them because she only wanted to freeze certain things, which she's done before. She's freezed Leo before and then unfroze him while keeping other people frozen. That's never given him immunity to her powers in those circumstances. So I don't really understand why her selectively choosing to freeze in this case suddenly gives the people that she chose not to freeze once immunity from her powers. Doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure if it's a continuity error because I don't recall it actually coming up in the future again to be right or wrong. But either way, it confused me. But they stated it, so it is technically world building as well because it's giving us insight into how our powers work, though it makes no sense to me actually. Um, so yeah, that's 4 points. These ones I'm going to rank separately because there's two of them. So obviously we have the first main relationship development is that Cole and Phoebe are meeting for the first time and having their adorable little meet cute moment, which is at the crime scene when talking to Daryl. Phoebe very enthusiastically volunteers to talk to him. And then later on, he comes to find her on her college campus, and she basically is startled by him and goes to basically roundhouse kick him. And he grabs her ankle to stop her, and then they have this cute little flirtatious moment over how she has a nice calf, and then she wants it back. So that's one of their cute moments as well. We then, of course, have in the garage, she's the one who runs over to him and kneels down to wake him up, bring him back to consciousness, and, you know, make sure he's okay. At the courtroom, she is the one who hits him, but she's also the one who bends down and, again, makes sure he wakes up and smiles at him, and they share a moment there as she tries to flirt with him there as well as he's waking up and give their story. And then at the end at the club, she's talking about how she hopes that he's going to stick around and at least he's one of the good guys because he's a ADA, Assistant District Attorney. Oh goodness, I need to. pronounce things correctly. Anywho, that is a cute meet cute. This is their first episode. This is where they're in the flirtatious stage. And then, of course, we also have the Piper and Leo. Obviously, this is the episode in which Leo proposes to Piper. And this one also goes hands in hand with one of our negatives, which is, of course, the main relationship regression, where Piper initially rejects the proposal as it doesn't feel right to her that they need to keep it a secret, that they'll have to elope. And she feels that what's motivating Leo, even though she is sure that they love each other, she feels what's motivating Leo is trying to get around his bosses telling them to break up, which is something that they did while they were up there. And she doesn't feel like it's coming from the right place or that it is the right thing to do. It's not what she dreams of for a wedding or wants for a wedding. And so she says no. But then her sisters kind of talk to her shortly after that. Then they go to the night court. She then has that near-death experience when she was outnumbered by all of the demons that her power to freeze wasn't working on and had to actually participate in a choreographed fight routine. And end result was that after all of that, at the club at the end, she agrees that she wants to be married to Leo. She doesn't want to die without having been married to him. She obviously loves him a lot, and that put it in perspective for her. So then she does accept the proposal. So we have a proposal and an acceptance, though briefly a regression in that she did decline it for a short period of time. And that, of course, is 4 points. It's also -3 for the regression. And then the last negative, I want to say there's a continuity error in the whole time moving at a different pace up there because in future seasons they do go up there and they're not gone for an entire month in reality. And obviously, whenever Leo goes to check with his bosses to gather information for the sisters, he comes back within a reasonable amount of time, which again would imply that it doesn't move differently up there in the future. So I am going to count that as a continuity error just because it doesn't make sense knowing what we know in the future. But I did debate on that for a little bit, but there's my reasoning and justification for it. And then the final negative for this episode is -4 on the weak main plot concept. The reason I think that the main concept is weak is that it is a backseat to all of the subplots. This episode really is more focused on, the sisters, Piper being gone, Phoebe and Bruce left to flounder. Phoebe gets her new power, gets her love interest. Piper's love interest is proposing and moving forward. I feel like it has a lot more to do with those things, and those are the things that are interesting and compelling about the episode. I mean, Guardians, a corrupt judge who is a demon. So a demon judge giving out guardians to mortal killers that he lets go to collect souls, like not the worst concept, but at the same time it was kind of in comparison to all of the subplots and that were kind of going on, it ended up being pretty weak. They didn't really, because they were doing so many things on the background as well, it was basically like two little court, like our main villain of the episode was just like two little court visits. It didn't feel like it was worth the basically it felt like it was a vehicle to introduce Cole, have the love interest, have the relationship drama, give somebody a new power. That felt like that was what the focus of the episode was and what the purpose of it was, and the main plot was just a vehicle to do that, not really fleshed out, not really compelling, kind of meh overall. That's why I decided to give it a weak plot, but even with those negatives, we still ended up with a 10 out of 10 episode, and in fact, exactly 10 was the score. Which brings us to our season 3 ranking so far on our mostly objective ranking. And surprise, surprise, the only episode that we've ranked so far is in first place. The Honeymoon's Over, today's episode. And so now we're on the personal ranking, and once again, because we are starting a new season, there is only one episode so far, so it's in first place. The Honeymoon's Over. There's our spoiler. And now for the reason why I'm scoring it the way that I'm going to. I liked the episode, but like I said, I more so liked all of the character development and romantic drama and introduction of the new power. That's where it shined for me. I also liked that I actually knew who the musical guest was. Maybe I was too young in the 90s because honestly, season 1 came out when I was like very young, single digit child, and I was still a single digit child age when this season was out as well. So maybe I'm just not familiar with the music, but I felt like last season I didn't really know any of the or very few of the musical guests. I think I knew the Cranberries existed, though not the song that they sang, but I've heard songs of theirs on the radios. But this time it was the Bare Naked Ladies, and I'm like, I actually know who they are. I hear them on the radio even today. So that was nice to actually know who the musical guest was, um, and even recognize the song that they were singing. I don't know the name of it, but like I've heard it on the radio before, and I know that I have heard it before. It is recognizable in that sense. So I liked that. Obviously, Leo proposed, and they're gonna get married, and it's amazing. I love the pairing of Piper and Leo. I think that they're like the fact that they were endgame and they have their struggles and ups and downs and then still get their happy ending because they work through all of their issues to get their happy ending and are willing to fight for it because of how much they love each other. I love it. So I agree with Piper a little bit that it sucks that he proposed or was motivated to propose by outside forces, but at the same time, they obviously love each other. He probably would have proposed at some point anyways, and this just kind of sped up the timeline. I love that she ended up saying yes. I even like that she did reject it at first, thinking that it didn't feel right because Piper, that fits with Piper's character so well. And then even with Phoebe in the past, when she's had like love interests apart from Heartbreak City, where she fell in love with that Cupid, a lot of her love interests have been single episode if they're there at all. But also she seems to have pretty good chemistry with the more well, I guess there was the one at the college too, an animal pragmatism. But I feel like for her it actually kind of suits her because they've mentioned in like is there a Woogie in the house how she's more connected to the house and can go either way because the house could go either way as she was the one who was born in it and she has shown like when she was is there a Woogie in the house when they had their when she was the one to go evil that she has that closer connection to evil. So I like that they are exploring that by giving her a demonic love interest. And obviously, Cole is also a likable character. I mean, he's tragic, but likable. And because he's likable, that helps the tragedy to actually matter to the audience, I think. And I love their meet cute. I like the calf scene, even though I think it's kind of awkward too. I think that's a cute scene. I like how there was like this immediate attraction on Phoebe's part. Like I said, it was a strong episode, but the main plot just kind of fell a little bit like an afterthought or a vehicle to promote, Cole's entry into the series, but not really there for its own purpose or even that big. So, because of that, I didn't rank it. I ranked it an 8 out of 10 because while I liked it, while I felt it was a strong episode, and spoilers, I think a lot of season 3 episodes are going to be very strong episodes. Very memorable season. When I'm like looking at the list of episodes to come, there are a lot that are going to be very strong. So in comparison to them, I don't think that this one was as strong as it could have been with that main plot, or the main baddie for the episode, I should say. So 8 out of 10 I felt was fair because we got a lot of subplot and character developments, romance developments, but the main plot has to count for something. 8 out of 10. Again. Which brings us to our series ranking so far, which is, of course, where we are ranking each of the seasons against each other. And on our mostly objective ranking, I'll remind you that we ended with Season 2 taking first place with a score of 75%. Season 1 ended with 73.18%. And with this first episode of Season 3, we have now gathered 10 points out of a possible maximum score of 220, as there's 22 episodes in the season, and a possible score of 10 for each of those episodes. On the personal side of things, Season 1 did come out much stronger than Season 2 for me personally, as it scored 71.50%, and Season 2 only scored 56.82%. And Season 3 is starting off strong with a score of 8 out of 220. With that, we have now rewatched and ranked Charmed Season 3, Episode 1, The Honeymoon's Over. Like and subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next episode.